And in the second half of the semester, despite today, this is really, the next 2 weeks are not going to be really exercise oriented the way that the first 3 weeks were. We are going to be doing that today at least, because I think that's the best way to get everybody introduced to Vue. But after that, we're going to be working on project stuff. So like this coming Wednesday, we will do a demo, but it'll be short-ish. I'm hoping. You guys know how I am, but I'm hoping it'll be short. And then it'll be more like, okay, so now implement this into your project. Get your own project scaffolding created and show me via sharing screen or what have you. And then tell me what project direction you're going to be going in, what kind of app do you want to make, and where did you find your third-party API data, and that sort of thing, and then implementing it and creating it. So that's what we'll be doing over the next couple of weeks. But we will do the demo slash assignment, lab assignment today, like we did the first few weeks. So you want to be following along, and then you will have a submission at the end of this. So VueJS. So what is Vue? Well, Vue is one of the front-end JavaScript frameworks that's become popular over the past decade or so, along with, I think the biggest one still right now is React. And then before that, it was Angular, was real big. I've used all three of them. I've used Vue more than either of the other ones, although I did teach an introduction to Angular once upon a time, a long time ago. But and I was trying to remember just before class. I know I've used more. Did I use handlebars? Did I use Svelte? I can't remember. There's a whole bunch of them out there. And if you can find, if you just Google or Bing, just like, popular front-end JavaScript frameworks, and you'll find a bunch out there. So what is a framework? Well, I don't know what you guys have done in other classes and whether you're familiar with some of these terms or not, but a framework is, well, it's just, think of it as a library, but like a larger opinionated library, code library, where the library is, like I said, opinionated, which means it's going to take over a lot of the work from you. And when you do anything within that project, you pretty much have to do it their way, or else it won't work. For instance, with Vue, which is one of the ones that we're going to be doing, if we want Vue to do anything, we have to mount the Vue app to a particular element in the HTML. And anything outside of that element, it's not going to work on. It's not going to do anything. And that's actually personally my most common error with this. When I can't get something to work in Vue and I'm banging my head against the wall over and over and over again, I have to remind myself, oh, wait a minute. Do you have that element outside of the mounted element? And very, very often that's the answer. So I don't know what other developers are like, but that certainly is the case with me. So Vue is actually not super opinionated in that it does allow you to do stuff outside of that mounted app element. So you could do just a regular flat footer if you wanted to at the bottom of the page and have Vue have nothing to do with it. Other frameworks are more or less opinionated than that one. And a lot of the frameworks are, a matter of establishing state and maintaining state and checking on state and changing state within certain elements of your UI. A lot of these frameworks are declarative, which means that instead of coding procedurally in the JS file, we're coding more declaratively in the HTML file, and using things like simple expressions in order to bring values in from the JavaScript file. Well, you'll see what I mean in just a couple of minutes. We're going to be demoing various things today. Data binding, which means that an element on your HTML page will be tied to a piece of data or a piece of state within your JavaScript, and so on and so forth. So that's what it's all about. It's really a matter of scalability. Like a lot of the stuff we'll do over the next couple of weeks in Vue, some of you might, if you're feeling comfortable with JavaScript, you might say, well, we can kind of just do this in straight vanilla JS. Like, why are we even doing the framework at all? And the answer is scalability. We may be able to do this very simple stuff using vanilla JS, but what happens when we have to adapt our application to enterprise level and we're faced with having like 50,000 page views a day or something or more, who knows? That's when scalability becomes important. And these teams who have been working on these frameworks, they've got this stuff in mind for us. So anyway, let's take a look at the starter files. So here is the index.html. Oh, wait, let me share screen here. Haha, I remembered, barely. I almost forgot. Oh, hi, Jesse. Welcome. Jesse, the starter files are up on Canvas, or not Canvas, but Google Classroom under Unit 8 lesson, or whatever I called that in week 4. Hang on just a second here. Oh, hi, Edwin. Let me show you guys here. So it's this guy right here, Lab Unit 8 under week 4. And this time, for the first time, I've got a starter file for you guys. So you need to go ahead and download that and crack it open. And then those are the files that I'm going to be using. Oh, I didn't get around to sharing the screen. Come on, Bispo. Wake up, brain. I've only been awake since 7 this morning. I think my brain doesn't really wake up until about midnight or so. Okay, now I'm sharing screen. And this is it. Week 4, Lab Unit 8. And then this is just like the others, except that we've got the starter file there. So that's what you want to download. And this is what the HTML, I just kind of got things started here. This is just kind of a boilerplate, kind of a standard HTML page. I haven't really done anything with it in terms of CSS or JavaScript or anything like that. So we'll do that first. And then the CSS, this is the skeleton.css that I was telling you about. It's just very, very basic stuff. You don't even need to go online and read the documentation. If you know CSS, then you can see exactly what's happening here. And these are, class selectors. So if you want something that's going to be one column wide, then those are the classes you put on your element, and so on. Although there is some documentation online, but this one is just, I chose it because it's the easiest one and the simplest one that I could find, and it's just dead simple. So we'll be bringing that in. That's one of the first things we'll do. And then in JS, here's the books.js, which is just some starting data. Now, when you guys work on your project later, this is maybe analogous to some of the data that you'll be pulling in from a third-party API, except the data set will be much larger, certainly, than this. This is about as small as it could get, right? If I had more time, I would have put more items in here, but I only have a little time enough for these 4. So anyway, we'll go ahead and start with that stuff. And here's the index.html. Let's go ahead and put in our JavaScript first. And the favicon.ico, which I put in here as well, which is the Vue logo. So let's go ahead and get those guys in here. So I'm going to put them, my standard ordering for the head element is the metas up top, which you want that because the char set needs to be declared right up at the top. So you put the metas and then your title, and then you have underneath there the links for your CSS, and then underneath that you have the scripts for your JavaScript that you're pulling in. And remember, the JavaScript needs to be contained within the head or within the body, and by convention you put them either at the bottom of the head element or the bottom of the body element underneath everything else. And generally speaking, you want library and framework calls to be done up here before your page loads. And then the stuff that you want to do with that library or your own JavaScript acting upon the DOM, you put that at the bottom so that the DOM can finish loading before your own script. So that's the general way that it's done. I see it done occasionally very differently. One of the UI libraries that I'm considering showing you on Wednesday, I haven't decided yet, is Vuetify. Like Beautify, but for Vue. And the documentation that I saw has them calling the JavaScript in down at the bottom of the body. I don't know why. Beautify it's kind of baffling to me so far, to tell you the truth, so we may not even do it. So anyway, let's do the links first. So I'm going to do link rel equals style sheet. Don't forget the K on link. If I can find the key. So I'll be bringing you guys back to the HTML class here, right? href hyperreference equals, and this is going to be the css / skeleton.css. And that'll do for that. And then let's put another link right underneath there, which we will do rel equals icon. Is that right? Yeah, rel equals icon. and then href equals images slash favicon dot ico, like so. And before we even do anything else, let's just go ahead and save this stuff, and then I'm going to open this up in a browser and we can check it out. So yep, here it is. And as usual, I'm going to open this up in Chrome. And there it is. So it might look a little bit different to you already, in that the skeleton.js, it chooses a font for us. Instead of allowing the oh so typical Times New Roman, it's choosing Helvetica or Arial for us. So that's why it looks a little bit different. Let me go ahead and go right ahead and open up the console here with Control-Shift-I. And then we'll be able to check stuff as it happens in here. The other thing that we've done over here is take a look up here in the tab, and you see there's the view icon that we use. So that is this line right here, the link rel equals icon. Some browsers, all you have to do is throw the favicon.ico into the root directory or the images subdirectory, and they're smart enough to figure it out, but not all browsers. So for cross-browser support, you still want to get this line in here. There's another attribute, a type equals like icon slash image or something like that, but I don't think that one's really necessary. This should do it. Next up is going to be our JavaScript calls. So right underneath here, still inside the head elements, let's do script source equals, and just go ahead and leave it empty for right now. And now, so this is where we're going to call in the VueJS. So VueJS has this thing where you can just choose whatever's the latest version. And they use the unpackaged website. jQuery does the same thing. You can do like jQuery.com/latest or something like that, and it'll always pick whatever is the latest stable version or the stable release. So let's go ahead and do this one as well. This one is going to be https://unpackage.com and then /view #next. And just for fun, I'm going to select this and just let's take a look at what this looks like in the browser, because it'll take us to the raw JavaScript file here, but it's going to do a bit of a redirect. So I copy that and I go to the browser and I paste it in like this, and you'll see the server will think about it for a moment, and then it'll redirect me to whatever is the current stable build of Vue. So I hit enter, and there it is. So it just switched to the distribution and vue.global.js version 3.2.36. So that's what it does. Now there's a danger of this in doing it this way, just so you know. It will always update to the latest stable version. So let's say I'm working on like a big client project and I do like hash or the tag next like this, @next. And then they implement the website. Great, awesome, perfect, it's wonderful, we love it, here's your money. And then next year, Vue updates to Vue 4, right? Instead of Vue 3.x, it's Vue 4.x, and maybe they change some things about it. The next version might be slightly different. And I may start, or my client may start running into errors on their website, which is the last thing you want to have happen. So just be aware of that. There are a lot of people who say, yeah, use this when you're in development, but when you're in production, go ahead and follow that link to the browser, copy this and paste this in, because this will not change, right? If I do the source for this actual address here, it'll always be 3.2.36. It won't try to update to Vue 4 next year or whenever. So just be aware of that. I'm just going to leave it like this for right now because we are in a development environment and it's fine. And then downstairs here, let's put our own script tag. And remember, this is for us, our stuff, right? So we're calling the library in up here, the framework in this case. And we're going to create a JS. Don't use books.js, but let's create an app.js. And then go ahead and create it. So go to JS and then make a new folder, a new file. Like so. Okay, so in order to get Vue to work, remember I was saying that you have to load or mount an instance of Vue onto one of your HTML elements. You have to do that, and if you don't do that, nothing will work. And anything that you leave outside of that will not work. So what I'm going to do here is we are going to make some changes to the HTML file. I'm not going to use body elements. I could, and I have done it before. The trouble with that is that um, this guy right here, the script file is inside the body element itself, and Vue gets a little bit nervous if you've included a script file in the middle of your element that you're going to be mounting the Vue instance to. So instead of using body, let's go ahead and just make a div directly inside of here that's going to hold all the other stuff. So it's going to hold header, nav, main, and footer. And then, of course, don't forget to indent properly. There we go. And I'm going to do a couple of things here. First, let's do a class equals container. That is not a Vue thing. Okay, stop it. That's not a Vue thing. That is a skeleton thing. So it's just going to kind of contain things. I think it's 90% of the viewport or what have you. And I'm not sure to what extent we'll even use the other skeleton stuff today. We might. But the other thing is to put an ID on here. And what we're going to do is we're going to do ID equals app. And then so this is the element that we're going to be mounting the Vue instance to. You don't actually need an ID. You could use some other CSS selector if you wanted to, but this is the way to commonly do it, I think. ID equals app. Now let's go to app.js. Let me know if you're not with me. If you're still struggling with like unpacking files or something like that, definitely let me know because you don't want to get too far behind here. Let's go to app.js. And let's declare a const. You don't actually have to do it this way, but let's do it this way to start with. Let's do const app equals, and then this is the instance of the Vue object that we're going to be calling in. So Vue with a capital V dot create app method. So this is one of the critical pieces of code that you need, and we'll definitely do more with this, but this is the way you start. Const app equals Vue.create app, capital V, capital A for create app, and then we have to mount this. Remember we were saying we have to mount the instance to an element in the HTML. So we will do app.mount, and then we'll choose the element that we've selected for in our HTML, which is this guy right here, hash app. So in a string, like so. So this by itself shouldn't do anything yet, except that this guy is showing up now. You're running a development build of Vue. If you go to production, then use production build as we were talking about before. And let's go ahead and do some more stuff with this. So what this is going to be here is it's just going to be an object literal. So that's going to be inside of the parentheses of the create app method. Create some curly braces and then open it up like so. And this is going to be the data for the app and the functions that we use for the app and so on. So let's do something very simple here to begin with. We'll create a template. We're not going to stick with this. This is so simple that I think it doesn't wind up getting used very often. But template, and then colon, and then in strings here, let's do like an h2, and then, well, you guys know we have to do it, right? Hello world. And then closing h2 tag. And let's just do that for right now. So save that and go over here and refresh. And there it is. So what it does is it replaces everything that we've got on the page with this hello world. And this is like I said, what we're going to be doing is single page applications. Single page application, or SPA, it's very common to have like if you look at the source code for the index page, that there's like nothing on there hardly. It's just all contained within these JavaScript files, or maybe something else in the back end. So for instance, I can't remember if we've done this already or not, but if you go to Google's homepage and just do the Control-Shift-I thing and take a look at the elements here, and you might expect, oh, okay, so there's a bunch of stuff. This is probably a list of icons contained maybe within a UL, and then there's this whole form here and everything, and there's some more navigation up here. There's the logo, and you're not going to see that kind of stuff in here. There's a bunch of CSS and JavaScript files and custom. These are custom elements, by the way. If you put the dash in there and have 2 words in there, then that's an HTML element that you can create yourself and then create your own attributes for it and so on. And then there's like this NTP app. Very often you'll see that. It's just some app or something dash app, and then you crack it open, and there's not much stuff in there. There's a shadow DOM element. I think we did look at this before. But anyway, there's actually there's more stuff on here than you would find with a lot of single-page applications. A lot of single-page applications, it's just kind of like a reference to a JavaScript file, like maybe 3 or 4 JavaScript files, maybe a couple of CSS files, and then that's it, you know, and the rest is kind of done off-board. So that's what this kind of idea is that you could put this stuff into a template like this and then spit all this stuff out to your page. And like I was saying, and you saw in the browser, it removed all of this stuff and it replaced all this stuff with that H2 that we put in here. If you did want to do that, if you wanted to do it that way, then you would really want to use, instead of like the regular quotes, you'd want to use the backtick quotes so that you could create a multi-line string. And you could put all kinds of HTML elements in here, and you could interpolate all kinds of values in there, and so on and so forth. But that would be something that I would think of more for vanilla JavaScript, personally. I don't think I would think of that so much for working with Vue. So let's do this so that instead of H2 with Hello World as a template, well, first of all, we won't use Hello World. We'll do something else and we'll put it out to an H2 that we have here, like underneath the H1, right? We'll put it inside the header. So go ahead and comment out this one line here, because we're not going to use it. And let's instead do data, and this is going to be a function. And then inside the function, we're going to return, and this is going to be an object literal. So this is the way this structure looks like. It's a function that's returning an object, and the object will have, like, you know, property and value pairs just like this one does, template, whatever. Except these doesn't have to be view defined. Like template is view defined, right? Like that's something that it's got inside the library itself. But these we can put in whatever property and value pairs that we want to, and then we can use those. So for instance, if we do like greeting, I just said we weren't going to do this, didn't I? But let's go ahead and start with it, and then we can switch it to something else if anybody thinks of one. So greeting, hello world, right? And then we go over to the index.html, and we will be able to spit that greeting out here. If everything is working the way it should be, then we can use data binding in a declarative way. Let's go ahead and put our H2 here. And then the way that you do data binding in Vue is with the so-called handlebars method. And by the way, there is an actual library called handlebars that created this whole method. And that is to use a pair, like a double pair of the curly braces in here. And let's see, what did we call this thing? Greeting, right? So inside of here, just go ahead and type in greeting. Make sure it's got the double pairs of curly braces and not just the one pair. And if I've done everything right, then this will put hello world out to the page. So let's try it. I'm going to refresh over here. And there it is. So we got our H1 back, which we wanted, right? And then now there's an H2 that says hello world. So maybe let's do something a little bit different. I don't want to look at hello world anymore. I don't know about you guys. But let's go ahead and, you know what, I'm going to take this guy out here of the H1. I'm going to X that, front-end web development. So the H1 just says IS450 and 450L, and then we can put the class name into our greeting, or maybe we'll call it, I don't know, class name or something like that. Now, I better not do that because that's actually an identifier in JavaScript. So let's call it class title. There we go. And then, of course, we have to change this to match. So this is going to be class title. And there we go. That's better. Enough with the hello world stuff. That should be only for week 1. So, yeah, go ahead.
Can I see the apps?
And now that I'm looking at this, we can simplify this a little bit. We very rarely are going to see it like this. IS 2015, I think it was, introduced some nice shorthand for having a method inside an object like this, an object literal. So you can just do this. And that does the same thing. Let me put the rest of the other thing. I cut it and I put it into a comment here. So you can type it out this way like we had it before, or you can shorten it to this. This is much more common because it does the same thing. Now you might think, well, if all this is doing is returning an object, then I shouldn't need the function at all here, right? I should just be able to put the object in there. I should be able to do data and then do it just like this. What's the wrong with that? I don't know exactly what's wrong with that, but I do know it doesn't work. There's other things that function is doing behind the scenes other than just returning this object. So you do need the whole thing. But basically anything that we put inside of here, anything we put inside this return object is stuff that we'll be able to use on the page. So let's put some other stuff in here. So we got class title, and let's say, oh, don't forget the comma. This is an object, so you need commas in between the entries. We will put textbook. What is our textbook anyway? JavaScript, the definitive guide, right? If you don't feel like typing all that out, you can just type in Daffy Duck or something. It's fine. We're just getting this to work here. And let's do an author. David Flanagan. And I'm also going to do an addition of 1.
Sorry, quick question.
Sorry, say again?
Quick question.
Yeah.
Where did you define the view, the VUE?
Where did I define it?
Yeah, my console spits out an error for views not defined. The made a mistake somewhere. I'm just not sure.
It must be this thing that's either misspelled or missing.
Script source goes HTTPS. Yeah, that looks to be spelled right.
And it's giving you a reference error that the view is not.
Yeah, it's an uncut reference error. Views not defined. It's on the app.js, but I'm pretty sure it matches.
Yeah, well, this is where we're calling in an instance of this object. So, gosh, I don't know. Let me stop sharing here, and maybe you can maybe you can share your screen real quick.
Sure, sorry about that. Let's see.
Oh, look how many people are here.
Should be this one.
You folks came in a little bit late. You can find the starter files that we're working with under the Unit 8 lab assignment. Okay, let's see. Can you zoom in a little bit for me?
Where's the zoom this thing?
Just you should be able to do Command or Control plus. There we go. Okay. You have next. All right. Take that source value, HTTPS, that whole thing, and copy and paste that into a browser address bar for me, and make sure that that's actually working.
Let's get this. Should I just copy? Should I try to use this one?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, it's definitely not working. Okay, let's take a look at your HTML one more time. I want to see the script tag at the bottom.
The one at the bottom?
Yeah, okay, app.js, and now back up to the top again for me. Okay, then your app.js. Go to the browser.
This one. Oh wait, no, not that one.
Okay, does that say starter or index?
This one says starter.
Okay, so that is the one you're working on. Sorry, app.js one more time.
1 second.
Extra credit to anyone who sees it before I do. View to create app. Oh goodness, I am not seeing it. Starter.
Yeah, check the folder. The app is inside the JS one.
Yeah, I can see that
Starter.
it is. All right, hang on, guys. I'm going to pause the recording. Zip up your files and post them to the classroom stream for me, please. Hang tight, folks.
Hey,
Okay.
Mr. Bispo.
Yeah, good. Oh, share screen, right?
Oh, yeah. And also, Christian pointed that out.
He did, huh?
Christian was mentioning that it was SCR instead of SRC.
Okay, I must have had my microphone or something off over here and I couldn't see you. So thank you for telling me that. Chris, you get extra credit.
Cool. Thanks.
Of course, just remind me when we get in the lab. All right. Well, let's see if things go a little bit better here. Okay, so we are recording. I will share screen. Good times. Okay, so I did put a few more things into the app.js here after the class title, which we did use data binding in order to get that out to the page, and we will do the same thing with the textbook, the author, and the edition here. So as you can see, these are all just entries in this kind of anonymous object here. I don't even know if that's a term or not, but this anonymous object literal that's being returned from our data method. And once you got these in there, then you should be able to use, like, anything you put in here, you can use on your page. So I don't know, I guess this should go in, well, let's put it up here just for fun. I'll just create a paragraph and we'll just use more data binding. So, I don't know, like textbook. And then remember, it's the double pair of curly braces that you can use to call data out onto the page here. So this is going to be textbook, I think. By, and then author. And then edition. Close up some of this stuff. This is confusing. I'll leave that open. There we go, and it spits this out. JavaScript, the Definitive Guide by David Flanagan, edition 1. I'm putting that on there for a reason, not just to show, again, this is how you do data binding, but we're going to do a declarative method in the HTML. We're going to make a couple of buttons where we can change this edition number up or down with two buttons. We'll do an increment button and a decrement button because, as you guys know, this is not the current edition. In fact, I think it's all the way, what is it, edition 7 or something like that? Can't remember off the top of my head, but it's something up there, right? So what we're going to do is inside, I guess we'll just stay within the header here, why not? And let's go ahead and put a couple of buttons in here. So there is a button, and this one is going to say increase edition number. And then let's do another button downstairs from there. And this one will be decrease edition number. So the user who arrives at our page for whatever reason should be able to change the edition number of the textbook that we're using for our class. So there's the two buttons that we're using. These are formatted as like not completely ugly buttons because of the fact that we're using skeleton. And what we're going to do here with these buttons is we're going to add a couple of events here. So events are, I can't remember, I don't think we've actually done it in JavaScript, although we should have before, but when you do an event in JavaScript, basically that's a way of grabbing interaction from the user and also some things that are not necessarily the user, like page loads and things like that. Those are all events that happen within the life cycle of a web page. And if we can capture some of those, then we can do something with those. So for instance, in vanilla JavaScript, let me go ahead and open up a new tab here. You guys don't need to do this unless you want to. I'm going to say that body equal, you guys have learned about this before, document.querySelector body. And this will grab, see what just happened, the camera just went off. I don't even know what I hit, and the camera turned off. Well, I guess I'll worry about it later. As long as you guys can still see the demo, okay? Oh, the camera, okay, that was it. Okay, cool. I haven't got used to this keyboard yet. So you guys learned about this. This was on that Walking the DOM, handout that I gave you guys last week or whenever it was, right? So I just grabbed the entire body element of Google's homepage here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add an event listener so that whenever I click anywhere on this page, I get a little log to the console that says, hi there, or something like that. So this is the most common way to do it. If you do, like I've selected for the body element, and I can do an add event listener. And then tell it what kind of event I want, like click in this case. But they could be all kinds of things. It could be like mouse over, it could be mouse out, it could be on page load, anything like that. But click is probably like 99% of the ones that you do. And then it's going to be a function here. And then console.log, hi there. I'm just going to do the simplest one I can think of. Like so. So document, or rather body, add event listener, click event, and then the E stands for the event itself, so that when you pass that in, you can like get the location of the click, you can get the actual element that was clicked on by e.target, things like that. It's all kinds of information you can get. But if I just do this here and then I click on anywhere on the body element, you can see I get a hi there. So it's just doing that over and over again. Not very useful, but kind of fun. So that's what an event is basically. And so we're going to be adding some of those to these buttons. That's what buttons are good for. So what's the difference between a button and a link? You can technically get either one to act and look like the other one. But a front-end web developer will tell you that a link, a hyperlink, is there for when you want your user to go somewhere, or when your user wants to go somewhere, whereas you use a button if you want something to happen. And that's what we're doing right here. We want something to happen. I don't want them to click on this and go to a different page or even a different place on this page. I want to change the edition number here. So that's what we'll do. So on this button here, I'm going to do this two different ways. This is why I've got two buttons here. I'm showing you two different ways of doing this. These declarations, as they're called, usually they start with V dash, V of course for view. And this goes back a ways. This is like the first time I did this kind of declarative thing was with Angular back in the day. But Angular would do it without, or they would encourage you to do it without the hyphens, even though you can do it. You know, they had a way for you to do it with hyphens, but that's not what all the documentation had to do it without hyphens, which would lead to you having like invalid code, which drove me crazy. It drove me nuts. But this one, they do use the dashes. So it's in this one, it's like V dash on, which stands for like on click. So we'll put that :click like this equals. So this is what this declarative stuff is all about. This is like what's going to be inside the quotes here is what we would normally type into our JavaScript file. And that's, you know, and including this stuff. So like the add event listener click, we're accomplishing that with this attribute name, and then the attribute value is what we want to happen with this. So we're just going to take the addition. Remember, that's this guy here, which we can access on our page because it's being returned in our data, and we will just do addition plus plus, right? The classic incrementer operator. So V dash on :click equals quotes addition plus plus. Let's try it. I'm going to go back over here to the browser and I'm going to refresh and then click on increase addition number, and addition here should move up to 2. So I've effectively, it's not exactly like it's a state engine or anything, but I've effectively changed the state of this element. So it's changed in the JavaScript and it's changed on the page. So it's like there's this two-way data binding here. And every time I click it, it goes up, but I go a little bit crazy, and now we need to wait for it to go back down again. By the way, when I refresh the page, that all goes away, right? Just like the console stuff gets emptied, same thing with this. We go back to state 0. So let's do this on the second button, except we will do a decrementer instead of an incrementer. So V dash on :click equals, and then addition minus minus. But let's show you a different way instead, because they do have shorthand, not for all of these, they're not declarations, what am I, I'm not coming up with a name tonight. But directives, that's it. Directives, that's what it's called. These are directives, and they call them the same thing with Angular and so on. These are directives. Now, they've got a shorthand for some of the directives, and this one does have a shorthand, and it's using the @ here, and then just type in click. So instead of V dash on :click, you can just do @click, which it's a little nicer to look at. Save that and refresh and go over here and test them both. So you should be able to increment up to wherever you want to, and then decrement it as well. There we go. And I will rest mine at number 7. Here's what those guys look like. I recommend doing them, like leaving them like this, different ways, just so you have it in your notes that you can do it either which way. So we have done a little bit of data binding. We've added a couple of events here declaratively. So what else did I want? I want to show you guys tonight doing conditionals as directives, and then also doing loops as directives. So let's see, which one do we want to do first? I guess we'll do a conditional first. And you guys, just from looking at v-on, there's a chance that you might even be able to figure out just right now what it's going to look like. But let's go ahead and do this here. Inside main now, let's go ahead and do a div. And we'll put stuff inside of here. But for now, instead of doing like this, is going to have like a big loop inside of it, not a big one, but a loop. For now, just go ahead and type in howdy or something like that, just so we can see it on the web page. There it is. And what I want to do is I want to do a conditional in here. And to do that, let's go ahead and add another little piece of data here that's being returned. After addition 1, or anywhere really, go ahead and do, this is going to be show books, and say this is true. Okay, so it just contains a Boolean. And very often when you have true or false, it'd be like reacting to some event or another, like the user clicks on the button and true changes to false, or false to true, in order to show or hide, I don't know, a drop-down menu or something like that, whatever it happens to be. But show books true. And then let's go ahead and do our directive here, v-if equals. You see how this thing works, right? So we did the v-on click, and this one is just a simpler v-if. We're just going to do v-if, but they've also got, like, you can do like a v-else and a v-if else even, or v-else if. Just look in the documentation if you need to do something more extensive than what we're doing here. But I'm just going to say if show books, and that's all I have to do. That's it. In order to get this thing to either show or hide, it just tests the truthiness or falsiness of show books, which is going to be either true or false. So right now it should still show howdy because it's true, but now go over to app.js and change show books to false. And now when we go over here and refresh, then it will hide that. So there's also a show and hide method in Vue directives, but this is the one that we're doing right now. So you could even like do like the click here. You could do like a button at click equals, and then like do a conditional if books true, then false, or whatever. Let's go ahead and just leave it like this. And in fact, I'll go back here and make this true again. Okay, cool. So now, if I go back to the browser, now it's showing again. Okay, good. And what we're going to do here, instead of just doing like a simple piece of text that gets shown or hidden, let's do a loop through some books. So for this one, I didn't figure you guys would want to type all these in, so that's why I have this code snippet here. So go ahead and open up books.js, and it's just this array literal that contains an array of objects containing titles and so on. I don't think I'm even going to do this one. You can either do it or not. It's up to you. But, well, okay, I'll leave it in there. We can always delete it later. I'm just going to do Control-A, select all, and then copy it, Control-C, and then pop on over here, actually here, to app.js. And we can return this along with the rest of the stuff. So after show books true, let's do a comma, and then just paste that array right in there. And this is going to be just another piece of content that's getting returned, except that we have to give this a property name, right? We can't just have it in there as a value. So let's say books, colon, and then there's the array. So that should be nice and usable now. Now, if all I do is do some data binding and just say, oh yeah, I'm just going to say books here, then I'm not expecting good things out of this. It's just, yeah, it's just going to throw it as if it's just slapping in JSON text, right? It's just showing the text object of the object itself. So let's go ahead and loop through these instead. So I'm going to put each one of these into a section. And I guess I'll just start by creating the section itself. What I'd like to do is try to kind of like create the template of what I want first and then apply the loop to it. So I know that I'm going to want an H4 with the book title. So take a look at, let's see, we can close books.js. Take a look at what we've got in app.js here. Each one of these books has an image, a title, an author, and then I can't remember what is fave I put in there before. I think it was a little joke about not liking the JavaScript book or something, but that's one of the reasons I was thinking about taking this one out. But yeah, I'm just not going to bother with that one. Image, title, and author are the ones that we can make use of here, just like we did up here. Like we had the class title, textbook, and so on, except that now it's contained within each individual book that we're going to be looping through. So I'm going to want, let's see, I don't know why my H4 wound up down there. I suppose I probably typed it there on accident. But let's go ahead and do some data binding here, the double mustache, and we will do book.title. Now right now, it's not going to work because we haven't created the loop yet. Right now, it's just going to cause a lot of problems in there. I don't know what you mean. What's this book thing that you're talking about, right? So we have to do the loop in order to make that work. But let's just go ahead and just run with it for right now. And let's see, what did we say? The book title, the book author. Let's do a paragraph there. And then do book.author. And that's probably enough for us to go ahead and start and get our loop in there. So this is one of the things that's cool about this is that you only have to create this once and then the directive will loop through all of the books and make that happen. So this is going to be a for loop, what's it's called, so V4. Now I want you guys to note that this is going to be a little bit different from JavaScript. Like, you know what a for loop is, right? It's like for let I equals 0, I is less than x dot length, I plus plus, right? That's a for loop. And then in JavaScript, we also have a for of loop and a for in loop and so on. So it's a little bit different. I wish that they had done like a for loop as like the classic loop, and then they could have done like a for of loop, and they could have done a for in loop. They didn't do that. And they get paid a lot more than I do, so maybe they're right and I'm wrong. But check this out. If I want to loop through the books, what I would do is I would do something like this. Book in books. And this is one of the things that bugs me because you guys know what a for in loop is. If you do a for in loop, then what you're doing is you're looping through the property names of an object, right? You're not looping through the values, but you're looping through the index, the keys. But that's not what this does. If I do v4 book in books, what it's actually acting like is a for of loop. I don't know why they named it that. I don't get it. But let's check it and see here. And I refresh. And there we go. So we're getting book titles and book authors. So just be aware of that. If you're just like, if you just now got used to what like a for of loop and what a for in loop is, sorry, they do it a little bit differently here. It seems like maybe you can do a for of loop and have it work. Am I remembering that right? Yeah, it seems like that works too, but I can't remember why, but there's some reason why that's not recommended, that you want to go with their standard book in books instead of book of books. Anyway, let's do an image. So this is important to know. I guess I'll put the image above each one so we can float them if we want them to. So you guys know what an image tag looks like. Image source equals, and then, you know, whatever it would be in here. So this would be, and then of course an alt tag, you need that. What I would expect is that you would be able to do the classic data binding in here and just say like, oh, like book dot, what was it, source? No, just dot image, right? Book dot image. I should be able to do that, but it's not going to work that way. If I refresh this, it's going to have some problems getting that stuff. So here's the way it works. If you are calling it, if you're trying to bind data with the mustache or the handlebars, then it can really only be in the content itself. If you're talking about an attribute value or an attribute name or something like that, it has to be done differently, just like this has to be done. You know, you can't just do some kind of data binding in order to call this in. It's something different. So let's take a look at what that needs to look like here. The simplest answer here is that all you have to do is do a colon in front of source. So colon source equals, and it looks like I'm missing a quote there. And then inside of here, so this is what's, so I think, okay, cool. So I've got the correct attribute now. So now I do my data binding, right? You don't need to do the data binding. Now that you've done this, this like takes the place of that. So all you have to do is do, in this case, book.image like this. And you can do the same thing for the alt tag. And in fact, you have to do the colon here. And then inside of here, book dot, I guess book dot title, right? That would make more sense for the alt tag. So save that. So these are two colons in front of the attributes. Go over here and refresh. And there's our images shows up, whether we want them to. And if we take a look at one of these guys, make sure the alt is working. And yes, the alt is working. There's the title of the book and so on. Yeah, cool. Okay, so we looped through the books inside a conditional. My understanding is that you don't want to do a conditional and a v4 on the same element, so I just contain the whole thing inside this conditional on the outer object here. I guess we could put it on main too. Let's see, let's go ahead and do the nav. We'll do, we're going to do a v4 loop again in the nav element, and let's go ahead and go to app.js and let's include a nav array here. So we've got an array of books. Make sure you indented right, yeah. Let's do nav, and we'll do another array here, and I'm just going to do like in-page links, so I'm going to do like, let's see, home, and then the text for it, and then I'm just going to do, let's see, what have we got? We have home and main and footer. Let's go ahead and do that. Do I have a footer? Yeah, we don't have anything in it, but that's okay. I don't know why you would want to give people a link to the footer, but we're going to do it anyway. And here is our nav. And I'm going to put each link inside of a span. So remember, you only need to do the element once, and then you do a v4 on it. And I'm going to leave that empty for the moment. And what do we want to happen inside of this loop? This is going to be an anchor, so ahref equals. Now this is going to follow the same pattern as this guy down here. If we're using an attribute in order to grab something from the loop, then we need to put a colon in front of the attribute name. So we're going to have to do the same thing here. Right? If we're going to want to do ahref equals hash home, main, and footer, then we're going to have to do a colon here. So let's try it here. I just want to try like v4, and I'm going to do a for anchor in, what do we call it now? Yes. Probably should have called it hyperlinks, but let's go ahead and do this. And then let's just, I don't know, let's just spit it out here. Let's see what we get. I'm just going to put a in here, and then data bind a into the content. I just want to see what we get, right? So let's save this and go over here and refresh. And unexpected token, and let's see, it did not like that, did it? Why not? Equals. Actually, don't know why that's a problem. This is the last thing I wanted to do, so if I can't figure it out pretty quick, I'll pause the recording and I'll get it fixed while we're on break. But let's see, what am I doing wrong here? Span v4 equals, then a in nav, yeah. I mean, that's not what it's going to be eventually. We need to have like two variables that would pass into the loop instead of just one. But I don't know why leaving one of those out would lead to a syntax error here. Huh. Okay, well that's cool. Let me pause the recording. I'll get it figured out. Okay, so this was probably, no, this is definitely a noob error, but I got confused because I didn't read the whole error, and all I saw was like unexpected token colon, and I kept thinking, well, I just typed a colon in here. Let me see that back so that we can get back to where we just were. There we go. So I just typed a colon here. What's the problem with that? And I kept looking and trying to figure this out. Didn't read the whole error message where it said that it's in app.js, not in the HTML file. So app.js, and yeah, even like code is telling me there's something wrong here. And look at this. I did an object literal syntax inside of an array literal punctuation here. That's the problem. And I don't know if you guys noticed, but when I first started typing it in, I like started doing one value, and then I don't know, my brain's not working tonight. This should be an object literal with the curly braces, not the square brackets, which is for an array, right? Because we've got property and value, property, value, property, value. And now, thank goodness. Okay, so that's all it was. No biggie, but yeah, whatever. So let's see what's going on here. So we're doing v4 a and nav, right? Just like we did v4 book in books, same syntax. And then we're trying to do like the colon href equals a, and then I decided, well, let's just do some data binding here too. I just want to see what a is, right? Let's see what we're looping through here. And so let me refresh, and then here is our nav. There's home main footer, so that's working out, right? So that's the A. That is the values here, right? The strings, home main and footer. And you can tell because it's got the capitals in there. But I don't want that for the href attribute, right? I want the lowercase h, and then I want to put a hash in front of it. So let's get the lowercase h first. So we could do some JavaScript and just tell it to go lowercase, or we could remember, well, wait a minute. Once upon a time, Bispo taught us that you don't have to worry about case sensitivity in HTML. Yeah, that's true. But let's say we had something different in here or whatever, and it wasn't just a simple matter of just converting this over. Well, the way that you get the index and the value, which, by the way, I thought I will check now since I haven't heard anything. Can you guys hear me okay? And you're seeing my screen okay and everything? Good. Okay, thank you. So here's how you do it. You're going to pass in two variables here. I want the element itself and the index. I need to separate those by a comma, and then I need to put these in parentheses. This is something that someone, it might have been Anthony, I can't remember, someone figured out how to do this in a for of loop in JavaScript, where you do like the square brackets around this in a for of loop, and then you can get both the index and the value. But in this case, you're using the parentheses like this. So AI, And then let's say, yeah, I want the index here, which is the property name of each of these, which is the lowercase home, main, and footer. And then I'll leave this one here as the uppercase text content. Let's save this and refresh and see what we get. How would you please go away? Got to figure out how to get those to stop. Home, main, and footer, and then we can see this is already open. So yeah, now I'm getting the lowercase one. But if these are going to be in-page links here, then they need hashtags in front of each of these, right? And that way these will go for the IDs. So what I can't do is just do this. Because remember, as soon as I put the colon in front of the attribute name here, the href, it's going to be reading all this as JavaScript in here. And so there is no such thing as #I in the JavaScript. And as far as I know, they can't be. I don't think you can start an identifier with hash. Let's see if I get a big fat error message. Yep, getting an error message. It was a bad enough one to break the whole page here. So that's obviously not going to work. So it needs to be something like I'm going to have a string with this in it, the hash, and then I'm going to need to concatenate that with the I. But how do I put this in quotes when the whole thing's already in quotes? Well, you just do the whole nested quotes thing just like you would in a regular JavaScript string that had a string within it, like someone quoting someone else who was quoting someone else, right? Use the single quotes inside of here. Now it looks so weird, and it's weird enough that even code doesn't know what to do with it, right? Like I typed in the quote here, and I typed in another one here, and it tried to autocomplete it there. It's weird, right? But this is the way you do it. So think of this like everything inside the double pair of quotes. This is a string of JavaScript, and if you take this out and look at it in isolation, this makes perfect sense, right? A string containing the hash concatenated with the variable, and then just the whole thing's contained within quotes. But I totally understand. It looks weird, right? But this should do it. If I save and go over here and refresh, then let me do a right click and inspect. And there it is, ahref equals hash home, and then the uppercase home for the content, and this is our loop for that. And then in order to get those to actually work, I just need to put some IDs on here. And in fact, let's change this a little bit, just like we were talking about. So I've already got an ID of app upstairs here, so instead of saying home, let's say app here. And then our main element, where'd it go? There it is. I'll have to actually put an ID equals main on it. Seems silly, but that's how you get the in-page links to work. And then same thing with the footer. Let's do footer ID equals footer. And then these links should actually work. This takes me down to the main element. This takes me up to the top of the page, and this takes me down to the bottom, as close as it can get, at least, to the footer down there. And there's that loop again one more time. I think I'll just do a little bit more with, the skeleton.js. We did the container, which kind of contains everything to like 85 or 95 or 90% of the viewport width or something like that. Let's take these anchors, or let's take these spans, I guess. And let's see, I think I can just put a class equals like 3, was it 3/4 column? No, it's, each one of these is 1/3 column. And let's see, will that work on its own? I guess it will. What happens if I also put class equals row up here? Well, it doesn't change anything. We'll do the same thing down here on this div looping through the sections. So this one, I'll do class equals row, although it didn't seem to make any difference, did it? And then section, let's see, we've got 4 books here, but I think I'm going to make good on my threat to get rid of the first one. And just have the 3 sci-fi books there, because this one's kind of like the odd one out. And then I can do exactly the same thing here. Mass equals 1/3 column. And we'll get those guys set up next to each other. Now, I would have to work a little bit harder at this because, as you can see, if there's not enough space, then it starts to eat those images in there. So I would need to do something like a responsive design here, which I have. But if I open this up into a desktop view, yeah, okay, that works fine. Let's see, was there anything else that I wanted to do for this? I don't think so. I think that's it. Just be aware that this is just like touching on some really basic stuff, and that these kinds of directives like this can be used all kinds of different places, including class names. Like if you wanted to put a class name on something based on something that was being returned from your data here, then you could do that. And of course, you can add and remove classes based on different events that fire. There's all kinds of stuff you can do. This is just kind of a basic introduction to data binding and some of the directives. From a very tired brain. So thank you guys for being patient. Any questions about anything? Okay, cool. So let me go ahead and stop the recording here.